Now I'm turning back to the SkyHunter with the landing gear. Basically, the camera has been built and we're playing with it. So back to this. And this is where I need to put the most of my effort because Arduplane is the third firmware I don't feel I've really conquered yet. Most people would, but I don't. So we left this, that it was completely built physically, except for what I'm going to do with this front platform as far as a camera. And when we last left it, you remember I had a Mobius camera, just double-sided tape to the front of that airplane. Well, we've come up with a different plan. And right straight off the bat, I'm just going to use the front for the other SkyHunter that's already made up. I've already got the wires, everything on it, and all I have to do is connect the pan wire, connect the camera wire, and this little one here is actually the tilt. And replace the front end with the front end for the other SkyHunter. It's just that complicated. Imagine all these are hooked up properly. So there's that front end, which can be flown on this SkyHunter. I don't see any need to do any more than that. So there's the build 100% finished with pan and tilt with a, I think it's a Runcam Phoenix 2 Josh Bardwell and a Runcam Orange 4K on top. Forget what they call that one. So that to me finishes the physical build, and we can now proceed with putting the Arduplane on it and configuring that and getting ready to fly it. Except I have another little thing in my back pocket. I can build up the new front end with all new components. Told you I'd figure out how I was going to finish this out. I think this is a good way to finish this out with a new digital system, my first. The price was right, let's say. And I can swap this onto the front of the other SkyHunter. So the two SkyHunter front ends will become interchangeable. And I think I'm going to like this. And in the future, I'll just have to buy a new kit like this. This part, which is the video receiver, is a one-time purchase, hopefully. That does look pretty sweet. From what I understand of the system at this point, these antennas might not be the best. And there's currently little firmware problems. But at the price this cost, I thought it was inexpensive enough to be my first digital system. That looks pretty sweet to me. And there's a little bit of an alternative modem with this camera. I don't know for 100% certain yet, but I think this camera is 1 millimeter narrower than this camera, and this system could easily be put on the camera. I may have a little spacing problem there, but you know, I had a big problem with this before I figured out how it was actually supposed to go together anyway. So this could go on the camera, or another transmitter module and camera like this one could go on the camera. Possibilities begin to branch. So this is sort of the solution for the second front end for the two SkyHunters. This is a little pan and tilt type assembly I printed out that is going to, I think it's going to work well for the camera itself, but I'm not too sure yet about the VTX. I guess I'll call that the video transmitter. I guess that's what it is. But this is just a little small. I don't really have it put together well, but there would be a servo through the bottom of it right here, sticking up that rotates it, and that's embedded in the foam here. And then a second servo here laying flat, and just comes up with a little bitty arm right here. And then the little camera going it like that. Now, is that not a much simpler setup than what I've been doing? I mean, look at that. That is absolutely stunning to me because it's so simple. It's lightweight. It's, boy, that's just wonderful for me. And then I'll figure out how I'm going to mount the VTX, but that's a great start right there. I'm so pleased with that. Tempted to go back and do my other ones that way. Don't think this one's going to quite go 360. I've got some servos on order, we'll see, but I think it's going to do really, really well. I think I'm going to be really pleased with the way I decided to finish this one out. I wasn't pulling your leg about using the front end for the other one interchangeably on this one as a joke. I really fully intend on using both of these, whichever one I want to fly. This is that big old 360 servo that's the size of a car. Down in there, there's the top of it. I have two more of those in the drawer over here. I could have duplicated this setup easily. Didn't want to do that. And then, because of videos I've been watching recently, well, the walk snail system seemed to be very, very nice. Seems to have some problems. Well, I've been in the forums and stuff, the channel on YouTube and stuff lately, and there's a lot of complaining, but I think they're doing pretty good. Everybody's complaints aren't going to be satisfied overnight. I think overall they're doing pretty good with what I see going on. And then we've got pilots out there flying this that are doing good enough with it to make me think I won't be wasting my time and money with it. So I decided to stick less than $300. A receiver that I don't have to repurchase, and one setup for one platform, less than $300. So I went for it and thought that was going to be a good solution to this final build. I told you I'd figure out what I was going to do with this. I just didn't have it. That's one reason I kind of backburnered this. I didn't have a solution for this. I didn't even have this pan and tilt solution today until Bonafide Pirate on his channel gave me those two little pieces right there that are solid gold. Of course, you might need to sit up a little higher so you can see over the shoulder of the fuselage, but I'm just playing with you guys. I ended up printing out his little holder here, whatever you call it, for a different airplane. I can just be lazy and glue right to the top of this and hold everything in. which means I will use a smaller servo that goes in this area to eventually put this like this. So I think I won't be using that big servo, and we won't throw caution to the wind about the weight of this thing. We'll just try to do it with that, because I think overall that will be simpler. This is the only wire that has to go away from this particular unit, except for the pan and tilt for the servos. This goes back to the flight controller, simply to pick up a UART for OSD data and ground and voltage to run. So I did order some servos, but they won't be here till the end of March. So I'm not sure how much further I'll be able to move forward with this yet. Well, I mounted this on the bottom so I could put it on top of the servo. But then I started to get my servo in there for the tilt, and I can't get it between the two places. Right there. It just won't go between the two places right there. It's supposed to go in. And when I measure the servo, it's 23.9 millimeters, and the inside section of this is 21. So I stuck this part, the STL file for this part, in Tinkercad, and I stretched it. Probably not what I should do, but I stretched it this way, 2.5 millimeters. Hopefully that'll get these two mounting posts right here an additional 2.5 millimeters apart, and that servo will go in the middle here. Let me show you that on the screen real quick. So this is Tinkercad. I dropped that part in right here. Oops. This is the part. And I'm just going to grab it. And it's 42 millimeters in length here. I'm going to stretch that to 44. Maybe 45. I know that's not really the way I should do that. It's not changing my dimensions right and left. It is pulling these dimensions, and it is messing up my three holes here a little bit. But I'm just wanting to get the distance between this and this wide enough to put a servo in there. So I just export that out as a .stl file. And there you go. Now I'll put this STL file in Cura and print it on my printer, and we'll see what that does. Well, the new part printed. It's just barely bigger than the other one. And the Emax servo still doesn't go in it. Try to put it in. You can see here. If I force it, you can see it's bending this back rather than going in there. So that didn't work too well. But lucky for me, I have a Futaba servo. Some stuff I've had around here for years. And look at this. It just lays right in there, just as pretty as you please. So this would not fit the original one, and was a little better. It is a little smaller than the other servo, but it still doesn't quite fit the original one without starting to push this out, etc. So I knew that what I was doing wasn't really what I should be doing. but I didn't want to stop and learn Tinkercad at the moment. So I distorted it, and I'll show you on the screen what I'm talking about. But the distortion seems to have done what I wanted. So I think right there, everything's going to line up, or maybe this goes in this direction, and the servo goes this way, perhaps, and then my points line up better here. We'll just see. But that does work with that servo, so that's my tilt servo, so I can start putting this further together. Oh, and you can see the hole in this one in the center is no longer round. It is distorted, which I knew what I was doing was going to cause that. So let me just show you on the screen what I'm talking about real quick. And what I'm talking about here is just pulling this around is not the way to fix it, really. That's just distorting it. It's easily seeable. When I pull this direction a long way, you're going to see this block and this block that are for mounting the servo are made larger. This hole is going to become oblong instead of round. See? And the gap between them is going to become larger, of course. That's what I was after, just to get this gap bigger. And so I just distorted it, to tell you the God's awful truth. What I really should have done if I wanted to do this right was come in here, drop in a solid, make that solid equal to the size of this, whatever this width is. I should have made that width the same height. If you look at this, the same height, I should make that whatever height that is. I'm just punching in numbers, and you see what that's doing is that's changing this. And with that as a whole, I should bring it over here, put it in that part. You can see right now it's not tall enough. So let's make the height 10-ish. Let's make it 15-ish. And let's just quit talking about this. There you go. So that's a hole. Now, problem is it's also in my base, so the whole thing, no pun intended, has to come up to like right here. That's really dirty. I don't need it that wide. It's probably going to cut into that leg a little bit here. But now that you got that, you should do Control A and say group. Patow. You can see how that, where I inserted that hole. Can't erase stuff on this, but I inserted a hole, a square hole. And what inserting that square hole did is it cut this much of that block off. And I of course could have do a Control Z here. We can grab that and copy that. Whoops. Pull one of the copies. Did we copy it? Come over here. Paste it. And then pull that one over here. And do the same thing. Control A. Group. Whoops. You see what we just did right there? We screwed that box up while we were playing with all that. And we made it cover our entire block. There we go.
And I don't think I'm in the bottom. Control A, group. B, up. Control Z. The hell's wrong with you? Get up out of there. There we go. Control A, group. There we go. This side didn't get too much of the plastic cut off, you see. But that would have gave me a completely, the rest of this part would have been completely undistorted. And I would have had enough room maybe to put that other servo in there. I could come in with a solid shape and fill in this hole right here before I chop that off and have a good wall. I could figure out another hole that size and drop it in there and move the hole to the left. I just really didn't want to stop and learn Tinkercad. I know a lot of CAD programs. At Radio Shack, I taught AutoCAD version 1.0 when it first came out, when our instructors were sick for the day, as the technical support representative over him, and the technician in the back, all the software support people and all the hardware people. It was my job to stand in for any of them. I taught lots of classes at Radio Shack before IBM or Microsoft even entered the market. I just don't want to stop and learn the little... I guess that's one of my problems. I don't learn stuff like this until I'm put up against the wall. Then I run out for a program like this and learn just enough to get past the problem I have, and don't get a broad understanding of exactly how it works. And I just go on to my next part of the project where I might have to learn something in a different program. Or, luckily, something I already know. Sweet when that happens. I guess that sort of causes a lot of stress doing it that way. Whereas if I just had a general Tinkercad good knowledge, then I wouldn't have to stress out over these times where I have to come in and do this stuff. But you can see, had I chose to, I could have solved this problem a different way. But to tell you the truth, the little 2 millimeters of distortion I did in this part didn't work for the Emax servo, but the little Futaba, and it's a 12-gram servo too. The little Futaba dropped right in there. So I'm done. I'll show you what I could have done. I'll show you what I did. I just popped it into Tinkercad real quick, grabbed the edge of it and distorted it 2 millimeters, printed it out, and checked out how that would fit my needs. It fit my needs. Moving along.
There's the little pan and tilt put together, I think, as much as I can really do at this time. If we zoom in on it a little bit, if I can get it in there. I've got it hooked to a servo tester, but I'm going to have to hold down the servo because it's not glued down yet. So put a finger right there, and then you can see I have that much tilt up, that much tilt down. It works really well. And the only other thing I have left to do is put this on the bottom of that unit when the servo comes in for it. This one just wasn't big enough. So the servo will go in this area of this mount underneath there. That will be finished, and we'll be ready to put that on the platform. Things are going pretty good. This video has gotten long enough, and I'm kind of to a stopping point because the part's right there. Got a strange pointer this time. It's a launch rod for model rockets. Right there is the walk snail video transmitter and camera in the pan and tilt, waiting for servos that won't come till the end of March. And yes, I have some I could use in the meantime, but I don't want to have to dig it back out of the top of this. I'll use the front part on the other SkyHunter if I need to do something at that time. So, got the walk snail over here, a little connector up there that's really for the USB for the transmitter. But I've got the receiver right here. I've got some antennas on order for it. It will come tomorrow. I've got a XT60 to 3.5 millimeter, I think, barrel connector here, and got a 4S battery here. It gives it a voltage in the mid-range of what the thing wants, so I think that'll be best for it rather than a little 2S, which is barely on the bottom of what it needs, or a 6S, which is on the top. Don't want to do that. But this does power up. I have seen that. And everything sort of does seem copacetic with it. I'm not going to do much with it at this point. Just got it ready to go. Because the little problem I have with it right now is this is a micro HDMI. And all of mine in the room are full-size HDMI. So I've got a cable adapter coming tomorrow to adapt this from micro HDMI to regular HDMI, and I can plug it into my 55-inch monitor over there. The little 12-inch monitor for the field also uses a normal HDMI, so I'll have to have that connector between this and the little 12-inch battery-operated field monitor. I don't have an SD card in it yet. I've still got to work on that today. Little things like that. But can't do much with this until I get the HDMI adapter so I can see what's going on with it. But I do have the power supply ready, and this XT60 to barrel connector will work for any kind of battery I want to put on this in the future. So that's fine. I'm not going to do too much with this as far as the walk snail is currently concerned, because I'm just going to go kind of slow with this and make sure I don't blow anything up. I do want to see what it looks like as soon as possible, and I can do that without the servo. So probably tomorrow we'll start doing something with the actual walk snail. But when the servo comes in, all we'll have to do is hook up the pan and tilt servo to the flight controller and hook into a UART and power with the walk snail transmitter there. Put it all right here on the front of this, and this will be finished. I am going to go ahead and start working on the software for the SkyHunter while I'm waiting on the servo to finish up the little pan and tilt stuff there and the whole walk snail system. I don't know if I'm going to buy another little transmitter and camera to put on the Camera, another platform, a rover, or what. I'm still smoking all that over. So I'm going to go ahead and close down this video at this point. It's getting long enough. And we'll just proceed on. Yep, see, I can use that until the walk snail gets set up if I want to fly this platform. So I'm in good shape. I'm coming down to the end of everything, and I will be exactly where I hoped to be. Thank you guys so much.